was by accident, really. So, I although I do speak professionally, I don't consider myself a professional speaker, if that makes sense, because it kind of comes with the territory, and it was just the way in which to present the trends, and I think the way in which we do it at Flux is slightly different. It's very, very visual. It's not your normal kind of talk, and also it's about business trends and everything. So it just I fell into it by accident, and well, luckily I can do it. Otherwise, I wouldn't. That would have dried up. That revenue stream would have dried up very, very quickly. But it is the sort of bread and butter. So it's just the sort of unintended consequence of what we do in the research and then how we do it. But then I always have a very specific, let's call it, and high standard of how the style in which we present it at Flux. So it's got its own style, and it's got its own kind of persona, and I think that kind of resonates, with people, because there's a special template. You can kind of see it, the way in which we do it, the fonts, all of those kind of things. So just from creative media backgrounds as well, I kind of understand the importance of that sort of detail, and making sure that it's a good performance as well, which I think it sounds fundamental and what everybody should understand, but I still think people don't sort of see quite the performance side of it. Obviously, if you're a professional speaker, you understand that you need to be slick and everything like that. But even for some companies that we give talks to, we say we wanted to do this X, Y, and Z. This is the way we want to do it, and they seem quite puzzled. And only when you explain to them, how the transition of slides and all of those kind of things start happening, and do it, and now how to present virtually, it's just steep learning curves. Then they go, oh, okay. It's like, yeah, it's not just getting up and presenting. There's an art to it. There's the way in which the slides need to move seamlessly, and you talk about the next slide before that one comes on screen. There's a whole, all of that kind of thing. If you just given a, well, stand up and talk about that, and you say, but no, I need this, and this, and this. Yeah, it takes a bit of explaining, and once you do explain, they say, oh, okay, yes. So there's a lot more to it than just getting up and doing the content. The content obviously has to be good, and luckily enough, we have content that fascinates people, because it is always about something changing, something very, very different, which they never thought about. So when people say to me, what do you do? I say the very short answer is, at Flux, we'll make you think very differently. And that's when people go, oh, okay, yes. And then when we finish, they generally say, gosh, I didn't expect that. And I said, well, that's what we do. I think, that's fundamental, and that's what I'm going to be presenting, at the unconference, is the fact that because things have changed so much, you've got the goalposts have completely shifted. So if you are speaking, of something, even if it's quite generic about maybe, the company culture, that's been changed. There are just so many fundamental changes that have happened. So even if it's not a completely different topic, you really need to kind of refocus and reframe that because of the nuances that have happened. And like I said, 2020 was that watershed year where just everything's changed. And if you have not felt a ripple effect in your sector or your industry yet, it is going to come through to you, and it will start hitting. So you don't want to be that speaker that's stands up at a conference, whether it's virtual or hopefully back in real life again, and then just speak of like saying, a model that is from a quaint relic of the 20th century, and you're still talking about that when everybody's going, but this is the better normal that we're in, and we need to hear about those new things. So I think what I'm going to be is highlighting is just those different shifts of where you can talk. So one big example. So if you're talking about retail, what we're tracking in 2021 is this whole explosion of v-commerce. So forget e-commerce, it's the virtual economy, and how big brands are dropping ranges and collections. Your big Valentino, Gucci, Balenciaga, really, really big luxury brands are using gaming to reach a younger demographic, and that's completely changed, things. And if you're in retail, what about digital fashion? There's a course in the UK that was announced last week that you can actually do a master's in virtual couture because it's now a thing. So you think, gosh, and if you're going to talk to retailers, they need to know about these things, because if your big brands are already, plunging into gaming and everything, then that's what they should know and be talking about. So you can't keep talking about, well, online versus offline, because your offline has moved into the metaverse. So that's a completely different ball game. So you've got to kind of do that. And the same thing goes, if you're talking about this virtual economy, I've just written a column about it. People are employing interior designers to revamp their homes inside Animal Crossing. So, who knew that was a possibility? And well, it is, because it's quite a lucrative business at the moment. So yes, things are changing very, very quickly. I'd like to, given vaccine outrolls and vaccine diplomacy and, as you see, global vaccine apartheid happening as well, is to focus on these innovation twists, because that's what really, really I find personally very, very enriching, but also just from doing the pilot tour last year, to see how it bridges that mindset with corporate companies. And after the things, we had some testimonials from people, and yeah, people just said, gosh, we just stuck in our corporate offices. We think this is the system to do things, but what these generally young entrepreneurs have shown us is that you do things very differently. And even if it's a small thing like, gosh, we should listen to a younger workforce more. And I go, hallelujah, it should be doing that already. But if it's just those little shifts, and from our chat, is just I enjoy not only rattling cages, but making sure people think differently. And when you see people thinking differently, that's what feeds me. So you go, yes, mission accomplished. We've been able to touch people and make some sort of impact, not the sort of corporate impact that you talk about purpose, but just make people think a little bit differently, and then go ahead. So one of the things I'm looking forward to in a couple of weeks is I'm speaking to my old high school, and they said, oh, we want sort of alternative careers, and I said, I'm going to give you very alternative careers, because I don't believe in the normal career trajectory anyway. That's also a quaint relic of the 20th century. And I said, but I see you've on the program, you've got a forum for the parents. I said, I would actually prefer to speak more to the parents and rattle their cages than actually speak to the students, because they probably have a completely different, worldview anyway, being digital natives. But it's the parents that you need to change their perspective and change their thinking. And if I can rattle their cages and make them think differently, then that'll actually already automatically ease their children's pathway into saying, mom or dad, I want to be a virtual digital couture designer. And going, what the hell's that? And saying, yes, I'd like to be an interior designer on Animal Crossing. So if they realize that is a thing, then yes, then we can do that. I think it was in terms of writing, because that's why I'm one of those real wild cards at Career Day, because I lecture at a business college without a degree. I write columns, and I've been writing columns for decades without having studied journalism. So, all of the stuff that I've done, when people say, what are my qualifications? Actually, well, I studied fashion when I left school, because I thought that was what I was going to do. And that just led me to, completely different things. And it was just sort of, I suppose, sort of, Asian blood and work hard and just put your head down and do it kind of, mentality that's done. But I think, so column writing is something that I really enjoy, and I've like I said, I've been writing columns for different publications for the last 2 decades, on a regular basis, some for like a decade, some for 7 years or whatever. But one of the things, and I think that also changes into knowing about speaking and putting yourself as a public profile, or having a media profile, is the one editor I had at Elle Magazine said, because I was gunning for placement, so I wanted to be the column on the back page, because that was sort of a prestigious thing. And to this day, people said, when you were writing a column, they would go to the back page first, and then read the column, and then read the magazine, and that was my goal there. And I kept trying to push it, and it was a new editor, and she said to me, what you need to do is, and I think this is a useful thing in terms of our social media lives today, is that you have to, it is a bit of a pact with the devil. You have to expose yourself on a personal level in order for people to resonate with what you are writing about. So you have to provide a slice of life in the column, and you've got to reveal something that is quite personal, that maybe you might feel uncomfortable about it, but that is the pact with the devil. It will gain authenticity. It will make sure that people resonate and relate to you on whatever level it is. And that was a really powerful turning point to understand that you've got to give that. And this was sort of pre-social media days as well. And now everybody's got that public cyber digital persona. And it's sort of quite common to have a parallel life on Instagram or whatever it is. But it's still, the fundamentals are still, solid there, is that to make it relatable, you have to kind of make sure that you give of yourself. But once you give of yourself, then it's, you've uncorked the genie from the bottle, but that is the payoff. So you've got to think about it very, very carefully, and it's sort of considering those kind of things to do that. So, but in terms of heroes and mentors, it's just along the way, it's just people that have guided me. That was just a real moment that I remember in, career-wise, thinking, gosh, that made me think very, very, very differently. But yeah, and I think also I wouldn't be here if I didn't have they wouldn't consider themselves, my dad passed many years ago, but great influences of just saying, yes, do what you want to do and not try and bludgeon you into an academic trajectory, or do this, and being of a minority community in South Africa, the sort of Asian stereotype is like, you've got to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an accountant. And somebody who wanted to pursue a creative, career was very, very different. And so, yes, and my parents are my heroes because they even took flack from, the rest of family members or community members to say, but, son can't do that because I signed up to do a design course, so, what sort of a future do you have there and everything like that. So, yes, so it's just those the little heroes, the unsung heroes, I think, in my life are the ones that I really appreciate most. Okay, so besides topics and content and reframing that, because I think that is probably the most fundamental thing is to do that. But I think it just goes into what I've just said, is I think with what we've been through is to have that sense of empathy, but also to really kind of be authentic and real, so that people can relate to you. I think what's happened in 2020 and with the pandemic is that we've lost that physical touch, and we need that sort of social connection. So how do you replicate that as a speaker if it's not the fundamental thing that you are bringing across? It's not the content, although that's what I'm going to be talking about is how to reframe that. But it's also just how to be a lot more empathetic and how to be more relatable, because I think the world needs a lot of that, to say that yes, it's okay, and to be a little bit vulnerable, because I think we need to see those vulnerabilities. And what's happening in 2020, that the big trending mental wellness has come to the fore. And it's we've seen even that sort of switch in celebrity, should I say, in 2020. The backlash of celebrities saying, oh, look, poor me, I've had to lock down in my mansion in Bel Air, and with my staff and everything. That's not going to wash with people. So it's to relate to people on a very, very human level. And I think once you're able to do that and be a bit self-deprecating, and laugh at yourself as well as the situation around you, I think people will resonate with that, and people say, yes, I agree with that.